and Happy New Year, fellow pilot watchers and TV bingers. How are you surviving post the end of year break? I personally watched 88 episodes of television, so I don't know about you, but I'm struggling in my return to reality. But thankfully, I can live in delusion a little longer as the pilot principal is back to dissect the first episode of a new series to determine if it has done its job in convincing us, the audience, to watch the entire series, or at least the second episode. For those who are unaware, I used to have a saying, never judge a series by its pilot or by its second episode, but by the third episode, you should know whether or not you want to continue. And the saying was great, when shows were averagely 22 episodes long, we didn't have a dozen streaming services, and it took 6 months for US television to make it to the UK. The TV landscape has changed, and so did my outlook. So with so much to watch, the pilot episode needs to earn its worth by convincing us to keep watching. Therefore, for the next 20-ish minutes, the first episode of 2024 will be looking at episode 1 of Netflix's Fool Me Once. Now, when giving a review of the pilot episode, I take into consideration the story, of course, as well as the characters, pace, and possible serial arc. As well as all of that, I highlight any standout moments as well as parts that fell flat before letting you know if I think the pilot episode has done its job and why. I'm Jen, and let's kick things off with the pilot synopsis as provided by Netflix UK. Maya attends the funeral of her murdered husband Joe at his family's stately home, then thinks she sees him days later on a hidden nanny cam. And I didn't actually read this pilot synopsis before I pressed play, so I personally, when I watched the episode, was shocked when she saw Joe on the hidden nanny cam, as was clearly outlined in the pilot synopsis. So there you go. That takes out some of the shock for some of you guys, but for me, I gasped. Which is why I am so tickled. Okay, moving on, the credits. I always start with the credits. I don't know, maybe because I work in TV and I write, I just think it's interesting to know a bit of this background information. But there we are. So pilot title, there was none. And, this year my resolution is to not go on and be angry whenever a pilot episode does not have a pilot title. Episode length is 55 minutes, and I'm content with 55 minutes. I mean, I would prefer 42 because I've got things to do, but 55 is fine. When it starts hitting the hour mark, but 55 minutes you can get a lot out of. So yeah, I'm good with that. The pilot episode was written by Danny Brocklehurst, who also adapted the series and is one of the executive producers on the series. As a writer, Danny Brocklehurst is exactly the kind of person that you want on your team for something like Fool Me Once. And it kind of makes sense as to why he's written the pilot episode, which you'll clock in a minute. He has written episodes of the TV miniseries The Five, as well as the TV series Ordinary Lies. He's also written episodes of Safe, The Stranger, and Stay Close for Netflix. Brocklehurst is also the creator and head writer for the Sky Max comedy drama series Brassic. The pilot episode of Fool Me Once was directed by David Moore, and as a director, David Moore has directed 8 episodes of Merlin, 3 episodes of Indian Summer, 4 episodes of Outlander, 2 episodes of The Last Kingdom, which is one of my favourite series on Netflix. It's about a man called Uhtred, who is the son of Uhtred, and he was born a Saxon and he was raised a Dane, and he's just a man who is full of honour and he's just noble, and it's just fantastic. It's a bit Viking-ish, just to give you an idea of the time period it's set within. But I would always recommend this series. It's fantastic. There are 5 series and 1 movie, and everything is available on Netflix. But back to David Moore, who has also directed 1 episode of Fate, the Winx Saga, and just the pilot episode of Fool Me Once. Moving on to cast, firstly we have Michelle Keegan, who plays Maya Stern. And Michelle Keegan has played Tina McIntyre on Coronation Street, where she spent 6 years, and that's about 861 episodes. She's also been in Ordinary Lies, which I referenced earlier. She was also the main character on BBC's Argylle, playing Georgie Lane, and also has a main role on Sky Max's Brassic. So we can already see how interwoven Fool Me Once is within its cast and crew. Next, we have Adil Akhtar as Detective Sammy Kearse, and Akhtar has starred in Sweet Tooth, Murder Mystery and Murder Mystery 2, Enola Holmes and Enola Holmes 2, BBC's Sherwood, Les Mis, the miniseries, Killing Eve, Apple Tree Yard, The Night Manager, Murdered by My Father, just all the British things. And good for him, because so far it looks like he hasn't ended up in that British soap grasp. So good for him for just being on so many things. Oh, also, Akhtar has starred in and or will be in series 2 of BBC's Show Trial. And I really enjoyed the first series of Show Trial, which came out a couple of years ago. It's a really good look at how we perceive innocence and guilt just based on media perception and the actions or characteristics of specific people. So yeah, really interesting. Next on the cast list, we have Richard Armitage, who plays Joe Burkett. Now, I've been aware of Armitage since his days of starring in BBC's Robin Hood, where he played one of the antagonists, Guy of Gisborne, and he was just great in that. Always wore black and leather. It's kind of my thing. And as well as that, he has starred in the Hobbit films, where he played Thorin, and he was also in Ocean's 8 and The Vicar of Dibley. He also had a voice role on Castlevania, and most interestingly, in context of Fool Me Once, Armitage has also starred in The Stranger and Stay Close, which I referenced earlier in regards to Brocklehurst, but will come up again later on down the line. And finally, on the cast list, we have Joanna Lumley, who plays Judith Burkett. I think it's Judith Burkett. Anyway, Lumley is well known as playing Patsy in Absolutely Fabulous, a comedy series from the 90s. And after having a look at her filmography, I actually don't know too much about what she's done. So I'm just going to say a bunch of things and hope that something sticks. So she also had a role in The New Avengers, Sapphire and Steel, Class Act, and she's also voiced a lot of things, including Lady Joanna Constantine on the 2020 podcast series of The Sandman. She also did have a short run on Corrie in 1973, so that's Joanna Lumley for you. Fool Me Once is available to stream on Netflix and has a series length of 8 episodes. Now, in terms of what made me watch the series, now there is nothing like starting the year with a new Harlan Coben series. Now, Coben is an American novelist who is living the adaptation dream, okay? He has exactly what I want. Fool Me Once is his 13th adapted novel. The first 3, Tell No One, No Second Chance, and Just One Look, were French language adaptations. And the 5 was his first British one, which was then followed by Safe. And if you've been paying attention, then you know that the 5 has come up earlier in reference to the series writer of Fool Me Once, Danny Brocklehurst. Coben signed a multi-million-dollar 5-year contract with Netflix in 2018, which said 14 of his novels would be adapted into original Netflix series or films, with Coben serving as executive producer on all projects. Now, the first title released under said deal was The Stranger, which starred Richard Armitage, but he's also done The Woods and Hold Tight as Polish language series, Gone for Good as another French language series, and The Innocent as a Spanish language series, which is actually on my list to watch. And Stay Close, which came out in 2021, which also starred Richard Armitage. Now, this is all to say that if you like his stuff, you are spoilt for choice. And not to worry, for anyone who did the math, his deal with Netflix has been extended for a further 4 years, so we'll see what happens by 2027. Right, okay, sorry, we were talking about why I specifically wanted to watch the series, and all I can say is that I haven't seen Safe, but I really enjoyed the borderline ridiculous, albeit engaging drama of both The Stranger and Stay Close, so Fool Me Once has been at the top of my 2024 watch list since I saw the trailer. Plus, Michelle Keegan. Okay, that was a very niche reference. So let's just hop, skip, and jump over to now talking about the first 10 minutes of Fool Me Once. It's a new year, so I'll go into this in full. So the reason I look at the first 10 minutes, give or take a few minutes. So as a writer, I've always been taught that the first 10 pages is where you need to grip a reader. Otherwise, they might not continue beyond that point, especially if your script just isn't very interesting. It's also typically the point in a script where you reach the inciting incident, and that's the thing that rocks the boat, that changes things for the main character. I've been on the flip side and seen that to be true working as a script reader, where I've often been tasked to determine if a script should move on to the next stage based on those opening 10 pages. And by next stage, I mean whether or not it should get a full read. And even at the times where I myself have given a script, and that is feature film script or TV pilot script, a full read, I often have to comment on whether those first 10 minutes were engaging, were interesting, would hook somebody in. All of this stuff then translates onto the screen for the audience. So if that first 10 minutes hasn't gripped you, especially in this day and age with so many distractions and so much to watch, then that could be a problem. It's not an exact science, but it's the formula a lot of people adhere to. And so with that being said, here is what the first 10 minutes of Fool Me Once is looking like. It is 1996, and we open with a kind of culty scene as 5 boys wearing either a football kit or their school uniform wear face obscuring masks, kind of like those old ornate Venetian drama masks, and some of them are also wearing fencing masks. Those 5 boys drink and dance around a fire pit, and oh yeah, they've got a boy tied up while they're doing all of that, so standard public school behaviour. Things go wrong when the boy who is tied up starts to choke, and we end the scene with the 5 masked boys looking at us who are in the seat of the tied up and possibly dying 6th boy. We then cut to the intro, which has various clips that give us a sense of both the world but also the characters and their lives. This ends with all the glass in a larger modern house shattering and then a family photo, and that's basically all in the first minute. When we come back in after the intro, we are at a funeral and we meet grieving widow Maya Stern and are introduced to her recently deceased husband Joe Burkett through a flashback. We see Maya and Joe meet at a function and their wedding. We also watch Joe die after being shot in the chest 3 times, as presumably Maya reaches him too late. Now, at the wake, Maya confronts Detective Sammy Kearse about whether he's found her husband's murderer and why he's there. He explains that he was invited there by Joe's mum, Judith. When Maya confronts her mother-in-law, Judith tells her that she wanted the detective to see the kind of man her son, Joe, was. She then tells Maya that she should be seeing someone, not just because of what happened to Joe, but because of 2 other events, something to do with her sister and army business. Back at her home, which we recognise as the house from the intro whose windows suddenly shattered, Maya is with her friend, and it's clear neither of them come from the same affluent upbringing as Joe's side of the family. Maya's friend gives her a digital photo frame with an inbuilt secret camera to go in the playroom so that Maya could keep an eye on their nanny Isabella, who looks after their daughter Lily, because Isabella and her family have always had a long-standing working relationship with Joe's side of the family. Next, we watch Maya at work. She gives helicopter flying lessons, then she goes to the shooting range to catch up with her friend Shane, and in the scene we learn that she is a great shot, and that is essentially the first 10 minutes. However, I'm going to fast forward a few minutes more. As Maya's getting her daughter ready for the day, she decides to check on the nanny cam, and she is filled with shock to watch the nanny Isabella exit the room and moments later see her recently deceased husband Joe enter the playroom and hug their daughter. This is the opening hook, and that is the 13-minute mark. Now, after the first 10-ish minutes, 13 I suppose, I'm slowly buying into the world. I'm not quite hooked, but I'm definitely intrigued, especially after seeing Joe walk into the room because I didn't read the synopsis and I actually just didn't see it coming. So I'm interested in discovering more, and of course I have questions. The big one being, was that Joe? Also, I want to know what happened to Maya's sister, what's the army business that Judy has alluded to, who is this Shane fellow? He's a work friend, but clearly, I don't know, for me, I'm getting vibes, probably that he likes her. And also, of course, how will that weird culty scene fit into all of this? We were at 1996 at the beginning of the episode, but we haven't gone back there since. Will we go back there again? And of course, the title, Fool Me Once. Like, what does that mean? You know, the phrase, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. So has someone already been fooled once? Is somebody about to be fooled twice, but they thought, hey, I'm not going to be fooled twice, I'm going to shoot Joe? Like, I don't know. So the title also, I think, encompasses some of what might go down throughout the series. Some of these questions are answered in the rest of the episode, so let's continue on to the main characters and see what is revealed. So firstly, we have Maya Stern, who is the protagonist, and there's something cold and hard about Maya, or perhaps unreadable is the best word for it. We know that she feels some kind of way about coming from a different world to Joe and his family, and that she doesn't really trust them. We don't know how far removed that she is. All we know is that Joe's family is super wealthy and super influential, but we don't really know much about Maya's background specifically. Maya just has a lot going on, not to mention the fact that she's got a young child, but she's also got a murdered husband, a sister who has recently died, and she was involved in some sort of whistle-blowing incident and misses the high of being overseas. On top of all of that, we watch in the pilot episode as she makes an enemy out of her niece's football coach. Did he deserve it? Potentially. He's incredibly rude, definitely a bully, and shouldn't be allowed to be teaching kids, but she inappropriately panties him in the middle of a match, and by that I mean she literally literally pulls down his shorts, boxers, everything is exposed. And yeah, like I said, a bit inappropriate and a bit over the top, but sure, whatever, she's got a lot going on. Now, I wouldn't quite say that Maya Stern is unlikable, but the way she confronts her nanny about Joe's possible appearance in the house, she kind of like grabs her by the arm and like drags her around. And then there's the way that she barges into situations. It's kind of unexpected, and I think it will take another episode or two for me to possibly warm up to her, but I definitely would choose her to be in my corner if there was a fight going down. The next main character I would say would be the detective. So that is Detective Sammy Kearse. And I'd say that he kind of comes across as the awkward and bumbling sort, but it's all for show. Well, show-ish. It's kind of the Poirot effect. He definitely knows more than he's letting on, and he 100% doesn't fully buy Maya's story of what happened the night Joe died. In his personal life, Kearse is getting married and his fiancée is pregnant, and we also learn that he is 3 years sober and that he might be ill because we watch as he passes out at the wheel of his car and crashes into a fence. He tells no one what happened, but texts someone called Chloe, I believe, that it happened again. Now, I think that Kearse wants to be on Maya's side, that they've got an interesting dynamic going on because neither of them really trust one another, but at the same time, it feels like they're the only ones that each other can trust. I don't know, they're kind of circling the same viper pit, but they don't know it yet. In terms of an antagonist, I would say that there are none at the moment, though, of course, this is somewhat a murder mystery, so the bad guy could be hiding in plain sight. At the end of the episode, we sort of flip through all the main characters, which tells me that everyone has something to hide, but whether they'd kill to protect their secret, well, that's hard to say. At least from the pilot episode. Okay, let's hit pause on Fool Me Once with a quick interlude to see what TV and film life is looking like beyond the pilot principle. I spent a lot of the festive break just catching up on TV that I'd missed, as well as a lot of film that I'd missed. And also what I really like to do when I get to December is sort of just look back on the year of film and TV and reading that I've had. I read 53 books in 2023, and at the very top of my list is a book called Bear Town by Friedrich Backman. Now, I won't go into what the book is about because I will just spiral and happily talk about this book for too long, but definitely check it out. It is a contemporary fiction book, and the author, Friedrich Backman, is probably most known to people for writing A Man Called Ove and Anxious People. In regards to film, I managed to watch 102 films last year. Not as many as I would have liked, but not a bad number either way. And I would definitely say that my standout films for 2023 included The Banshees of Inisherin, which I watched late, so I think technically it was out the year before. Also, I watched the theatrical release of A Little Life, the play based on the novel by Hanya Yanagihara, Past Lives, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which was probably my favourite movie of last year. But I also really did enjoy Killers of the Flower Moon, the Barbie movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Leave the World Behind, and Dream Scenario, which is a nice eclectic range for you there. And then also in regards to television, I think I managed about 546 episodes of television over 48 shows. And I basically use an app called TV Time, which lets me track what programs I'm watching because I like tracking things. So I use Goodreads for my books, I use Letterboxd for my films, and I use TV Times for my television series. And there were a lot of standout shows from 2023, including Happy Valley, the One Piece live action adaptation, the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials. I really enjoyed the golf documentary Full Swing, as well as the NFL documentary Quarterback. I managed to watch Blue Eye Samurai, and that was fantastic. But I think my top show of 2023 is actually something that I did a pilot review on, and that is Prime Video's Gen V. In terms of resolutions, pilot episodes aside, I really want to start getting through that never-ending list of series that I always say I need to start but never end up starting. And one thing about me is that I'm always behind on the latest or popular shows, so I'm just going to try a bit harder to just get in there and just watch things. But in order to do that, I think I need to clear the air. So these are the shows that I've had recorded or added to some watch list or another that I'm letting go of, because if I haven't pressed play by now, odds are I'm not going to. And those shows include The Gallows Pole, Then You Run, Ragdoll, The Killing Kind, Black Snow, Poker Face, and a couple of Spanish language shows, including Jaguar and Sky High. Now, if you have just yelled at me for turning my back on any of these shows, then drop a comment on Instagram or wherever and change my mind. Or if you would just like to keep up to date with what I'm watching in general, then follow at Pilot Principle on Instagram and Twitter/X. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled listening. In terms of my favourite moment from the pilot episode of Fool Me Once, there is a scene where the detective comes to visit Maya in order for her to once again run through the night that Joe died. And she says she's walking with Joe through the park when guys on mopeds grab her bag. She holds onto it and is pushed to the ground. They then ask Joe for his wallet and a fight ensues, and finally they end up shooting him. Maya's words are intercut with clips of the event, but they don't match up. When Maya says that she is walking through the park with Joe, we see that she's actually walking through the park alone, and yes, there are mopeds, but they speed right past her. When it comes to the clip of Joe being shot, it's clear that he's not in a park. There aren't just bushes around him. There are houses. It's a pedestrian street. And when someone runs over to him, they don't have a bag and they're in a leather jacket, which is a complete different outfit to the one that we see Maya wearing when she's walking through the park alone. Then she's wearing a long coat and she has a bag. What I've come to realise about me is that I really enjoy solving a mystery and I hate when I'm spoon-fed clues. And so what I really liked about this specific scene is that everything happens so quickly. We're hearing one thing and we're seeing something else. And what they've done is certainly tell us that Maya is lying, but we don't know why. And I just thought it was such a clever way to infer that. There wasn't anything specific that I didn't like within the pilot episode of Fool Me Once. I will just say that there is a lot going on. There is a lot of characters and you really have to be paying attention. Otherwise you miss out on just little bits of information that could prove relevant down the line. I honestly couldn't remember half the people's names because there was just that many people we were introduced to. Now, before I get to whether or not I'll be continuing with the series, let's run through the episode. As a reminder of the synopsis, Maya attends the funeral of her murdered husband, Joe, and then a couple of days later, she sees him on a hidden nanny cam, but nobody can explain why. So first of all, I think the writing was okay. There wasn't any standout lines, but I will say there isn't a great sense of character from the protagonist. The setting of this fictional little town that's probably just Manchester is okay, but what I don't get is if whether Joe's family are the only rich people who live there in this weird mansion on high. Are there other wealthy people? Is there a whole class dynamic going on? That really hasn't been established. I will say that the pacing was really good because just as I sensed my interest dip, a new piece of the puzzle was revealed, a character with a side eye or a secret was highlighted, and the clock start moving to try and work out where all of these people and all of these situations fit within the bigger picture. I'll also say that the series arc is clear, who killed Joe? Is Joe dead? And what is Maya lying about? What is her nanny Isabella lying about? What's up with the detective? So there's a lot of questions, the answers of which will probably get drip fed throughout the entire series. So yeah, so far I'm okay with that. And I think 8 is a good number for the series, especially because there is so many characters and potentially so much going on. And finally, with the end of episode Hook, and a quick spoiler alert here as we learn that the gun used to kill Joe was also used to kill Maya's sister. And so all of that combined with the already brimming plot threads to untangle throughout the series as a whole makes a very compelling case. And now it's time to bring that case to court, if that's how law works, I have no idea. Will I be continuing with Fool Me Once? Pause for dramatic effect? Yes. I have so many questions after the pilot episode, and I like that no character is useless. It is a little on the showy side, like where Maya pantses the football coach, and it does border on the questionable acting side, like where Maya's hand flies to her mouth in disbelief when she sees her dead husband on the nanny cam. But you know what? All that cheese and daringness does the job. You kind of know exactly what kind of show you're getting from the pilot episode, and I respect that. But that is, of course, just me. So if you are not a fan of overly dramatized scenes and a convoluted plot, then you might not engage with Fool Me Once. If you prefer to uncover a murder mystery directly from the angle of the police, then the fact that this is led by a civilian is not for you. And finally, if you prefer things a little more clean cut, i.e. victim, killer, why, how, then don't let Fool Me Once fool you twice, because this won't be for you. I would give the pilot episode of Fool Me Once a pilot score of 4 out of 5. Probably more like 3.5, but I'm going to try really hard not to do half scores. So I'm just going to go full throttle. It's the first pilot of the year. Let's go in strong and just go for the 4 stars because it did have a very solid opening. That whole weird kids in masks, fire, drinking, potential death was really creepy but interesting, as was that inciting incident hook of Joe turning up on the nanny cam. The pilot episode was really well paced, and the end of episode hook came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't know what they would discover when they tested that gun, but I did not see that coming. And so, yeah, I haven't watched episode 2 yet, and I have to say that I have been thinking about watching episode 2 since I watched the pilot, and that's a really good sign overall. Now that we've hashed out the fundamental principles, will you be giving the pilot episode a watch? Or have you already binged all 8 episodes of Fool Me Once? Let me know over on Threads, Instagram and Twitter /X @Pilot Principle, where you can also drop a suggestion for what you'd like for me to review next, or just let me know what your first pilot episode of 2024 was. Remember to follow and rate this podcast on your audio streamer of choice, as that really helps me out. Have a lovely week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.